Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this first fireside chat from the Advanced Propulsion Centre. We hope you find the session today useful and informative. This is the first time that we've tried a webinar of this nature, and we hope to be able to repeat more of these as our competitions go live again throughout the year. What we want to try and do is give you a nice, useful insight to demonstrate, and then from there try to build your awareness, your understanding, and hopefully then your progress towards making an application. So I'm Stephen Gasser. I'm one of the business development team here at APC, and I'll be your host for today. We want to take some time to introduce the Advanced Propulsion Centre to you. We want to get you thinking about how engaging with APC could benefit you and your organisation. But importantly, we want to introduce you to some of the people who will be able to help you. We want to show you that applications can be developed with a degree of support. And then once successfully funded, we want to show that we're on hand to support you throughout the delivery phases. Today, we'll be offering an insight to Demonstrate, one of the most popular APC funding competitions, and hopefully encouraging you to explore it in more detail and attend the live Q&A on the 16th of January. You can register for this via the Demonstrate page on the APC website, and we'll send a link out once today's meeting has closed. You'll also be pleased to know that you won't have to listen to me talk all morning, as I'm delighted to be working alongside my colleagues Matt and Emily. Both are instrumental in supporting APC projects and will be able to provide a unique insight that I hope you'll find useful. So starting with Emily and then moving to Matt, could you please introduce yourselves, your role, and perhaps talk a little bit more about your APC engagement activities?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Thanks for that. So my name's Emily Wybig Rasmussen. I'm a project delivery lead at APC. And what that means is that I engage directly with projects after they've been awarded funding. So after they've had a successful bid through, I will then be introduced as the nominated PDL to work directly with that project. So initially that means I'll be working with the projects through their project setup phase, and that can be quite an involved set of steps you need to follow through to get to your official grant offer letter. But I'll also be with the project throughout the project life, working with all partners for success, whatever that looks like. So I'm here full time. I'm available to talk to projects on whatever basis they need. That could be weekly, it could be bi-weekly, or it could even be monthly if nothing's amiss in the project. So what that really means to say is that Steve in the BD team working with you through application, myself and Matt throughout the life cycle of the projects, and we've got a whole ecosystem within APC that's there to support you. So over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I think you've covered our sort of core role really well there. So yeah, I'm Matt Shillito, Senior Project Delivery Lead, part of the delivery team, working alongside Emily and the rest of the team of project leads. As with many of us at APC, automotive background, so worked at JLR for a number of years, worked in consulting for a number of years, and I've been at APC now for 5 years. And yeah, in terms of role, very similar to what Emily just described, working with projects from the sort of setup phase through the launch, and then we work through those alongside the projects throughout the whole delivery phase and bring them to a successful conclusion, trying to make sure that it works for the projects, but also that it works for the sort of objectives that we've got as APC, that they're doing the right stuff for sort of UK PLC in terms of, driving investment, driving jobs, driving sustainability. So yeah, thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you, Matt. So folks, if you've got any questions as today's webinar progresses, please feel free to drop them into the chat function, and we'll get back to review those once we've finished the more formal parts of today's meeting. If there's anything we can't answer today, we'll take it away and we can arrange a follow-up call with you. But also as well, if you wanted to speak to us about the development of a possible project, again, please pop that in the chat, and we'll make arrangements to pick up with you later on. But let's have a quick look now at APC. Let's get under the skin a little bit and find out a bit more about what we do and how we work. So today, if you are engaging with APC for the first time, it's interesting that for us to be able to tell you that we really are a bridge between government and industry. We consult, we design, we set the scope for the funding competitions like Demonstrate that we're going to talk about today. We facilitate the funding for projects such as Demonstrate that support the transition to zero-emission vehicles. We make sure that the grant funding opportunities work and as a result become a bit of a catalyst to support the UK automotive industry and the supply chain that sits within it. But gluing all of this together, there are a couple of key documents that can be found online. If you haven't done so already, grab a few minutes and have a read. And again, we'll send some links out that you might find useful after today. Search for the UK's modern industrial strategy and then drill down into the section on advanced manufacturing. There you'll find a reference to the automotive industry, DRIVE35, and the funding runway that supports the vitally important automotive sector. So let's get to the hub of today's matter. Let's get to talk a little bit about Demonstrate. And you'll see a slide appearing up on the screen very shortly. There we go. So Demonstrate is part of the innovation pillar of DRIVE35. And in that section, you'll also find some competitions called Mobilise and Collaborate. Demonstrate is really exciting and very well regarded. The competition scope calls for the development of a product and process demonstrator, a prototype, to show increased capability and commercial exploitation that bring about the opportunity and the result of the project. Innovation, first of a kind and the first to market. That's what this competition's all about. It gives you the opportunity to design, develop and manufacture strategically important technologies in the automotive sector that support the UK's transition to zero-emission vehicles and a pathway to a net zero automotive industry. If you think you've got a project or an opportunity that fits within that Demonstrate bracket, have a look at the scope, have a look at the opportunity to develop that project, and then come back and talk to us at APC, and we'll give you some assistance and support to try and shape that. Also, within Demonstrate, you have the opportunity to exhibit at CENEX. And for those of you that don't know, CENEX is a leading event for innovation in the automotive industry. The good thing is that the fund covers all parts of the vehicle, not just powertrain. Demonstrate competition has 3 specific themes: zero-emission vehicle technologies, manufacturing competitiveness, and software-defined vehicles and electronic architecture. And again, should be looking at mapping your project to at least one of these themes when you're starting to explore the scope of your project. Brand new for DRIVE35 are the additions of Theme 2 and Theme 3, manufacturing competitiveness and the software-defined vehicles. This gives DRIVE35 much more scope than it had in the past. This opens up funding possibilities for many more organisations who are supporting and such an important pillar across the automotive industry to be able to access and take advantage of this funding. Applicants can request grant funding of between £500,000 and £1.5 million, and projects can be a minimum of 50% match funded. For example, if you're asking for £500,000 in grant, then your total eligible project costs need to be a minimum of £1 million. Projects that cover under the Demonstrate banner are around 12 months in duration and can be on vehicle technologies for on and off highway vehicles. And any UK registered business can be the lead applicant. You can do this on your own, or you can bring a team together. So, in summary, what we'd like you to do is think about taking part in the applicant briefing in a couple of weeks' time, where we're going to drill down into all of these points in a bit more detail. But in the few minutes that we've spoken to you so far about Demonstrate, we've talked about the scope, we've talked about the themes, and we've talked about the kind of company that can apply. But now let's take a few minutes to bring this to life. I'm going to refer now back again to Matt and Emily and ask them to talk about the type of Demonstrate projects that we've funded and perhaps bring out some examples of the kind of activities that they've been engaged with.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so just to sort of bring this to life in terms of the sort of projects that are typically sort of seen on the Demonstrate program, I think worth mentioning, Demonstrate is kind of the successor to what used to be called ARMED, Advanced Route to Market Demonstrator. So if you're familiar with those projects, if you might have been to CENEX or might even have applied or been a part of that before, Demonstrate is very much sort of picking up the baton from ARMED. What we want to get across is it's not just vehicles. Originally, Demonstrate, the sort of platonic ideal of a Demonstrate project is generally, okay, you're building a physical vehicle demonstrator, but also in line with the themes that Steve just described. It can be much broader than that. It can be a process demonstrator as well. It can be, how some piece of technology that's going to enable you to manufacture something that's going to be new and innovative. And it can cover those other new themes, the manufacturing competitiveness, and also the sort of software, electronic architecture side. So just a few examples of projects that I've supported over the last few years. One that got quite a lot of traction in the press, it was 2024, was White Motorcycle Concepts. So these guys make sort of modify a three-wheeler motorcycle that is a donor bike from Yamaha, but they make it fully electric and they utilize a sort of patented aerodynamic duct system. So in the past, they'd done hybrids. That was something that they were already offering commercially at a small scale, but they used the Demonstrate project to do all of the engineering to make that a full EV, which meant a new bespoke battery pack, a new duct for maximum aero performance, and that was tailored to the needs of sort of emergency services, first responders. So within that 12-month sprint, they did a huge amount of work. They worked alongside Mahler Powertrain, and then they were able to use the CENEX event as their main sort of product launch sort of showcase, and they really got a lot of traction from that. A couple of others I'll mention briefly. There was one in the last year run by Zerkatech. You might be familiar with them. They're an SME based just south of Oxford, and they do sort of barrier coatings, ceramic based sort of plasma coatings traditionally. They've got quite a history of doing that for sort of thermal barriers, but what they developed within their 12-month Demonstrate program were coatings specifically for EV applications, which incorporate thermal protection, sort of dielectric properties, so they're useful for battery packs anywhere working around the HV components, and also a barrier for sort of EMI, electromagnetic interference, to help protect the components. Last one I want to mention, it was one from CENEX last year. It was the Triumph Universal Software Platform. So they did build a physical demonstrator. It was an update of their TE1 concept bike, which they'd unveiled a couple of years before. But that project specifically, it was looking at the software side. So it was looking at the electrical architecture. It was looking at the sort of sensing, and then creating a universal platform that they'll be able to deploy on future models. So for Triumph, it wasn't about showing a sort of market-ready product in the way that it was for White motorcycles. It was about advancing their readiness in terms of their sort of software and their electrical architecture so that they're ready to go. You'll probably be aware there aren't any, full power Triumph electric bikes whizzing around at the moment, but they used it to progress their sort of knowledge and readiness. I'll hand over to Em for a couple of examples as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, just to think of a few that I've been involved in, you might have seen at CENEX this year, the 2 fire engines that were on display. That was another vehicle level demonstrator project that closed recently to develop an electric fire engine with vehicle-to-vehicle capability. The idea being there that you'd be able to power the pump for an extended period of time, rather than increasing the assets that London Fire Brigade, who are a member of the consortium, would have to have within their fleet, or increasing the battery size, which, as we know, would be quite expensive and heavy for the vehicle. So there was a really interesting use case there around having capability within the fire and rescue fleet. It brought together Equipmake to do the vehicle-to-vehicle and battery and drivetrain side of things, Emergency One as experts in fire appliance kit out and spec and requirements, feeding in LFB's needs to that part of the process, and Cenex, who were doing a model for energy requirements for the fire and rescue fleets. So that achieved quite a lot really in a 12-month period when you think about it. But it's really helpful for Demonstrate to have that fixed endpoint to drive the need through to create a demonstrator, whether it be product or process. Thinking ahead as well about the auto council tech petals, I've had projects that were focused on electric motors, an SME electrified automation, that's an ongoing project developing a high voltage low power motor. We've had power electronics in the past with Protean developing an A-sample inverter, and these all led on as well to future projects within the APC ecosystem, which is really good to see. From a process side of things, there's an ongoing JLR project at the moment, working with Wykes Engineering and WMG, and they're developing an automated cell for in-production rework and repair of battery packs. So really exciting stuff that's going on. And I'd say that there's a lot of opportunity to include a project that works for your business within the scope of Demonstrate. So really think about the opportunities there on show and do engage with us if you have an idea or a concept one-pager that could feed into our business development team.
Thanks, Emily. And so you can see there's a variety of opportunities, variety of projects, and a variety of organisations that step forward to have their projects assessed. And we'll talk about some of those things a little bit later on, but what we want to focus on at the minute is the benefits that successfully funded projects can bring to your organisation. And again, you know, some things that we commonly hear about is the support for you and your R&D. You know, the advantage that that grant funding provides for you. It gives you that ability to explore and develop and to bring those products and processes hopefully to market quicker, to give you that competitive advantage and get ahead of the competition. Something to make us ultra competitive here in the UK. It gives you the opportunity to raise your profile. It gives you the opportunity to think about how your technology can transfer across to other sectors as well. And because of that, that helps to build a culture of creativity, innovation, and continued improvement across your business. But in conjunction with that, you've got the support available from the APC business development and the program development teams. So throughout this process, it's really useful for us to say that you're not on your own. You know, you're going to get support and advice with your bid development. You know, we can't write that bid for you, but we can certainly ensure that what the narrative you're trying to put together, the narrative you're trying to develop tells and builds that compelling business case for consideration. And in conjunction with that as well, you've got the support and the advice with a project or program delivery that helps us to ensure that you can deliver the objectives of the project that you've put forward to us. So you may have thought about submitting an application for funding for a while, and you might not have had the opportunity to do so yet. Or there may be something niggling away in your back of your mind that's stopping you from having a go. And we wanted to take some time to help to build the confidence, belief, and motivation that this is the right thing to do. We'd encourage everybody on the call today to talk to APC and to ask those questions, to seek that guidance and advice. You know, just going to reiterate the message that we're here to help you, because sometimes just finding the time to make a start is tough. We know you've all got busy work lives. We know you've all got different challenges in the workplace. So finding that opportunity just to sit down with a blank sheet of paper and think about what a project might look like can be difficult. And that's where it comes into just having a chat with us to kick things off. Because at first glance, an application of this nature might appear to be a bit daunting for you. But the advice we give you very early on is this is just a bit like applying for a job. You know, we're going to give you all the information you need to gather the right information for each elements of the competition application. So, you know, some people might say that APC funding is only for companies like JLR, the big OEMs and suppliers. Is that true?
Absolutely not, Steve. No, I think Demonstrate is the perfect way for an SME to get involved, whether that's going to be as a partner on a Demonstrate project or even as the lead. And it's a great way as well to be exposed to what it means to be a lead in a grant funded programme and gain an understanding of those requirements, because they are actually quite different to being a partner. So if I think, for example, even back to my previous life, if you take, for example, the EOX project, which was an Armed One programme back in COVID, actually, it was quite some time ago now. But Ox Delivers were an SME that led the project, and they were really an SME in the truest sense, a startup at that stage. And they worked with another SME, being Potenza Technology, to fully develop an electric flat pack truck within the 12-month programme to show it off at Cenex. And that was then used as a springboard for future projects and future investment. And it actually resulted in them winning a larger Collaborate bid in the form of APC 19. So that really brought them through the process. And I think that speaks really well to the success that Demonstrate can lead into showing capability and upskilling, really, within a short period of time. It's a sprint, 12 months really, to get yourself around. So I think that really speaks to what it can do for the whole ecosystem in UK PLC, rather than just a large OEM or a JLR.
Thank you. And Matt, what about the scope of projects that we see? Are all the submissions for all the same kind of technology?
No, so it is really, really broad. I think there's sometimes a conception that with APC, we're at the Advanced Propulsion Centre, that it should perhaps all be, direct powertrain technologies. It's always been broader than that in terms of we've got what we refer to as our tech petals, which are available on the website, which covers all of the different areas of technology that are feeding into the progress towards zero emission vehicles. So that can be powertrain tech, it can be EV tech, so your batteries, your inverters, your motors. But then sort of stepping further away from that, we've always covered hydrogen. We also cover sort of alternative fuels, as long as they're zero carbon fuels. So we've had projects in the past across APC on hydrogen combustion and also other zero emission fuels. But then taking a step even further, lightweighting has always been in scope. So if there's anything that's making vehicles as a whole lighter, more efficient, reducing emissions, that's always something we've been able to look at. And like some of the projects we mentioned earlier, like Zerkatech doing their sort of ceramic coatings, that's not a technology that in itself delivers CO2 reductions, but it's part of the process, right? If you're going to make a successful competitive EV, there's a huge number of components and technologies that need to feed into that to make it a compelling product for a customer, or to reduce TCO if it's commercial. So it is really, really broad. And we've explicitly broadened that with DRIVE35 to cover manufacturing efficiency and electronic architectures and software-defined vehicles, which some people feel that's a bit buzzwordy, but it covers, that massive shift of sort of features into the sort of digital world, and the fact that as sort of UK PLC, we want to be good at all of that. So really, if there is any angle for a technology that a company's developing, if there's any angle which relates to progress towards zero emission vehicles, it's always worth a conversation, effectively. And it's surprising how broad the field can sometimes be. Just to sort of last point on that manufacturing efficiency piece, as long as it's a component or a technology which goes on to zero emission vehicles, we would still be interested in talking to you about it. So it doesn't just have to be, I've got a battery, I've got an inverter, I've got an electric motor. We're keen to talk wherever it fits into that ecosystem.
Thank you, Matt. And so, as with all projects and competitions of this nature, the devil is in the detail. And we wanted to take some time to help you to consider if you and your organisation are ready to apply. Just want to reiterate what we said throughout today. We want you to be successful, and we'll do all we can to support you. However, the onus is on you to compile and submit the application and to deliver what your project outlines. So as you look to build your application, we'll try and give you a few early things to think about. So Matt and Emily, let's throw the floor open to you. You've seen projects delivered at first hand. You've seen the impact that they've made. And what advice would you give to any potential applicants, please?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think from my perspective, the successful projects I've seen have a really strong sense of customer engagement and an understanding really of what those requirements are for the customer. So I'd really encourage you to engage customers and think about your real customer, not one step removed. And that will be critical for feeding in for your exploitation, providing a strong route to market. And ultimately, that will impact the outcomes and therefore the benefits to the UK, of which APC we're predominantly concerned about success for the business and therefore the UK. So I'd encourage you to think about that. If you're going for a consortium, because an interesting thing about Demonstrate is that it can be single partner. So if you're going to be collaborative and have a consortium, think about why. And if you're going to go single partner, also, why would you be going down that route? So from that perspective, yeah, really come through with a compelling narrative as part of your application for that.
I'd add, I think one of the biggest sort of hallmarks of a successful project that I've seen is that the business is entirely sort of aligned and focused around that project being a priority for them. And we see this with SMEs more of the time are more focused around a single technology or outcome. So sometimes for an SME to get a Demonstrate project, it's like, this is going to be our core focus for the next 12 months. We also see it with bigger companies as well, but that strategic alignment is super important. I mean, Wrightbus, people might be familiar with, based in Northern Ireland. They had a Demonstrate project a couple of years ago, and they've got a lot going on across their portfolio, but they were using this to accelerate one of their key strategic technologies. So that's a real hallmark of success. The flip side of that is, again, across the batch of companies, honestly, we sometimes get people who apply for Demonstrate because they like the idea of getting some funding. They think, I'm developing technology, I'm doing zero emission stuff. It'd be great if I can get some government funding to do it. But occasionally it becomes clear that maybe the technology perhaps isn't as critical to their sort of portfolio as some other technologies, or perhaps that they've underestimated the amount of effort it's going to take to deliver this thing in 12 months, and they kind of get cold feet and sort of lose a bit of that momentum. These are 12-month projects. You can't get an extension because you're supposed to be exhibiting the thing at the end of that period. So I'd say if you go in for a Demonstrate project, make sure that you're really serious about delivering it, because if people do fall out halfway through or decide it's no longer a strategic priority, they're sitting on some grant, right, that could have gone to another technology developer. So we want you to be successful with your applications, but we want your applications to be, something that's a real commitment from your business as well.
Yeah, and with that in mind, it's one thing writing your application and winning the bid, but you really need to be ready to go from day one. So if you've been perhaps overly ambitious in what you want to achieve, and that's meant that you need to go through some recruitment, I'd suggest that you probably don't have time, if only a little, to get that recruitment done ahead of the project starting. So be aware of that. Have the people, the assets, the capability in place to hit the ground running and be ready to go on your project plan immediately. It will probably mean that you stretch as an organisation, and the Demonstrate project, with it being a strict 12-month deadline, is a really good way to focus the mind and achieve a lot in a short amount of time. But don't sink yourself with your business. Be careful of over-promising, but also maintain that value for money piece that's important in terms of what benefits you're delivering against the grant that you're asking for.
Thank you, folks. Oh, sorry, Matt, carry on. Beg your pardon.
Sorry, just going to say, we've got a whole list of these. One of the things that, coming on from that alignment as a business, the other thing is making sure that the folks delivering it, in particular your lead project manager, make sure that they're really well briefed in what they're trying to achieve technically, but also what it means for the business. With all grant funding, occasionally people will use external bid writers to create a really strong application, sometimes promising the earth. and then it gets handed over to someone in the delivery phase who might not have been party to those conversations. They might not have been party to the strategic discussions, and therefore it takes a bit of time for them to get up to speed as well. So yeah, just in the successful projects, the person leading it day to day is really well briefed and has been a part of that whole journey. I think that's another hallmark of a sort of successful project.
Yeah, who you're handing it over to in that project setup phase, because there are quite a few gateways you do need to get through before you have that official grant offer letter in your hand that confirms that you've got the money. So it's one of them is the financial viability piece. You might need to show capability to match fund the entire 12 months of the project up front. Innovate UK Finance will need to see that you're able to fund the project and deliver the outcomes. And there will be a delay, for instance, in month one, if you put if you make a payment for some materials, it could be month 4 before you get the grant funding for that once you've completed your first month's claim. So really be mindful of the cost and grant that you're putting through in your application and how actually you're going to be able to fund that throughout the 12 months. Perhaps consider your accounts and cash flow forecasts or all that side of things is what I'd heavily suggest.
Yeah, keep an eye on the time, Steve. I think if we sort of wrap up this bit of it and
Perfect.
maybe open it up for a Q&A.
That's lovely, thank you. So following that really useful insight, folks, we're going to close the formal part of the fireside chat very shortly. And before we do, we'd of course like to thank you for your time and your attention today. We hope that this sort of new APC sort of fireside chat format has been useful to you. As we said, what we want to try and achieve from this is more of you registering for the applicant Q&A and more of you coming forward to ask those questions and start getting inquisitive about the kind of work that you're doing, the kind of projects that you've got, and the kind of activities that you think might fit the competition scope. So from here, we're going to throw the floor open to you. And we'd be more than happy to take any of your questions. So please feel free to fire some in the chat if they're not there already. Chloe, is there anything for us to answer first off?
I can't see any questions at the minute, but if people have any they'd like to put into the chat now, if not, we could go through some of the common questions that we get asked.
That's cool. Don't be shy, folks.
Just to pick up again in terms of sort of reflection on what makes a successful application, even though these are generally sort of prototype sort of style projects at a relatively early sort of TRL MRL level, that's technology and manufacturing readiness level. To support the application, it's really important that you can see where it's going. Like it generally has to be a part of your sort of product roadmap, part of your strategy. So you can say, okay, we're not going to make this, one-off, all singing, all dancing prototype, but we don't know where it's going to go next. In the strong applications and the projects that ultimately get funded, there's a really good understanding of like what's the market out there for these technologies. Who are our customers likely to be? Do we have a sales team? Are we really already speaking to customers, or are we just going to put in the application, we intend to sell to Tesco and Amazon and blah, 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 blah. If you saw the number of applications that came through for electric vans, all of whom intend to sell them to Amazon, it's more than the number of vans in the world, sort of thing. So to make a really credible application, you need to really think about that, total addressable market, serviceable market, all of that business case sort of stuff, and that shows that you're serious about what you're doing, right? You're not tinkering, you've got a business plan.
Okay, thank you. So Chloe, was one question popped in the chat?
Yes, it was from Robin asking, do we have to have been through Mobilise before we can apply for Demonstrate?
I'll take that one, team, if that's all right. Robin, no, you don't have to. Not at all. The DRIVE35 program is designed that it can work a little bit like an escalator, where people can move from Mobilise to Demonstrate, to collaborate, to scale up and to transformation. But you can come in to that funding portfolio at any time. You've got to pick the time and the opportunity that's right for you and your business. You've got to pick the right projects to meet the funding criteria. But you certainly don't have to pass through the Mobilise gateway first. Thank you. I think one thing that leads on from that as well is a common question we're always asked is what happens if we don't hit the competition submission date? Is there another opportunity? Yeah. Well, most APC competitions open a couple of times a year. So it's about making sure you're in touch with us to see when competitions will be opening, making sure that you're following us on LinkedIn, making sure you subscribe to the APC newsletter, but then also as well maintaining a regular contact with the team, some of the team perhaps you might see on the call today. And again, another regular question we're asked is if we're not successful, can we apply again? Well, the answer is yes. Typically, applicants are allowed 2 goes at putting an application together. So your applications are assessed by 5 independent assessors, and they will score your application and provide some feedback. And you can use that feedback, if you're not successful in the first instance, to add some further strength and some rigor to your application itself, and to look at the kind of points that the assessors have made. And many people then go on to resubmit, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, they're successfully funding. But once you are successfully funded, again, another question that I'm going to put to Matt and to Emily is does an applicant get the money straight away?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy, is it, Matt?
No.
No, so you'll need to progress through project setup, get your grant offer letter in hand. Once your project officially starts in month 1, you'll go through the first 3 months of the quarter spending on the project. At that point, there will be a quarterly review meeting. You will submit your claim, whether you might need an independent auditor's report as part of that. Innovate UK Finance will also check the claim along with your monitoring service provider. At that point, hopefully, it's all ticked off. Yes, it's eligible costs. Yes, we're happy with it all. The QRM went well in evidence that you have actually done that activity associated with that claim, and you will then get paid the grant money following that. So there is up to a 4-month delay, most likely.
Okay, thank you. And you talked before about projects having a defined start date. Is that the case for every single project?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So projects always have to start on the 1st of the month officially. So from an admin perspective, it starts on the 1st of a month and runs for 12 months. Sometimes we get a question around, do we have to start working, get the tools out on whatever day it might be, 1st of March? The answer is just be pragmatic about what works for your business. Like if there's some long lead time stuff that you need to start doing earlier, you can start work, but you need to be aware that the funded period, your eligible activities that you can claim for, will start on the 1st of that month. So let's say you're starting a project on 1st of April, you may well want to do a bit of sort of preliminary work in March to make sure that you're ready to go. But, you can only start claiming your hours, the material that you've bought and paid for, from, I need to be clear on the stuff that has been ordered and delivered after the official start date. So you can't buy a load of stuff in March, pay for it, and then claim for it after the fact. But yeah, there is a fixed start date for Demonstrate 2, which is open now. I don't know what our assumed start date is, but there will be an assumed start date. There will certainly be a latest possible start date. Usually, practically, there's a choice of a couple of months, i.e. you'll be informed that you've been successful. And then if you get all of your ducks in a row for project setup, you might be able to start, at the start of the following month. But realistically, from announcement to project start, I think we normally allow, something like 6 to 8 weeks, because the project setup admin is fairly significant. So even once you've been successful in your application and you have a funding offer, there is still a bunch of stuff that you need to do. Provide bank details, Innovate UK do some due diligence checks of your eligible costs to make sure that everything you plan to claim for is legitimate. that can take a couple of weeks to get through. So yeah, normally there's a setup period of, as I say, maybe sort of 6 to 8 weeks, and then you'll start officially on the 1st of the month.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Demonstrate 2, we're expecting a 1st of September start.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, folks. So we're going to move forward now to close. We've just got a couple of minutes left as we run up to the 10:45 schedule finish time. So again, thank you very much indeed for coming along today. As Matt said, Demonstrate 2 is now open. We'll send you through again after today some links to the APC website where you can explore that. You can look at the application process and you can look at the scope. If you'd like to be in contact after today, we'll also send you an info email address that you can use, and that will allow you then to book a meeting slot with the BD team. And again, we're going to carry on pushing that official applicant briefing, so we'll put some details of how you can join that one. So from us, folks, we do have another fireside chat like this taking place in a week or so's time, and that's to cover off Collaborate. So again, if you're interested in Collaborate, just hop on that call with us a little bit there. But from us, thank you very much indeed for your time and attention today. We certainly hope that you found this useful. As we said, it's a brand new format from APC, and it's something we hope to repeat as our competitions progress throughout 2026. Have a fabulous day. Stay safe in the forthcoming storms. I hope you're all working from home without too much travel. So good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.